Oh. Oh, that's so interesting.
Right, I'm changing your question. I meet people around Cambridge and they're just like, are you APThompson? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Anna.
That is a deep question, David. I mean,
Because what is important to me is that I'm making some form of positive impact on people's lives. And it doesn't matter if I'm impacting one person or 100. I've applied to, Clare College because I saw your video and, oh gosh. I feel like I read all the time and I never want to construct a persona. I never want to be someone that I'm not. We went through like several head teachers, all with very different agendas. And when I applied for university, I didn't think that Oxbridge was really an option for me. And you are good enough to do whatever you want to do, whether it's Oxbridge or any other form of higher education, or whether you don't want to go to higher education. It doesn't matter.
Today, for Coffees on Me, David Quan, I'm excited to be in conversation with Anna Piper-Thompson. Anna is a second-year English student at Clare College, Cambridge, with academic interests in medieval literature and currently volunteers in Christ College's archives. She likes to be involved in a wide range of creative pursuits, from publicity and set design in the theatre scene to writing articles for Varsity. She also runs her own YouTube channel, APThompson, focused on accessibility and demystifying Cambridge. This is really important to her, as is disability access and gender equality, so she was involved with the Cambridge Our Streets Now campaign as the Disability Intersectionality Officer, has spoken at several secondary schools about applications to university, and is currently working as a STEM Smart Mentor for an access project ran by the university. Most impressive of all, however, Anna microwaved my suit for me on my first day in Cambridge. Anna, happy holidays and welcome to Coffees on Me, David Quan.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
Wonderful. It should be a great discussion. So Anna, you're always seen with a book in hand. Is there a person, passage or poem that you think about often?
Yes, you always do seem to catch me while I'm reading. So I don't really have like a favourite author or anything like that. I really like to read like a wide range of stuff. However, there is one poem that seems to like follow me around. It's an Aphra Behn poem and it's called On Loving Too Equally. And Aphra Behn is just this incredible female writer, and actually she wrote the first novel but is never credited with inventing the novel or having any part in creating it. And I read this poem as like an unseen practice for A-level English literature, and I just thought it was an absolutely incredible expression of like female desire from that period. And I ended up actually handing in that essay as part of my application to Cambridge, and most of my interview ended up being discussing that, and then like today actually I'm writing my dissertation on Aphra Behn for this year. So yeah, she seems to follow me around a bit.
That's incredible. What about that piece had captured your attention at the time and now?
I think it's largely that she sort of takes very traditional models but stretches them and changes them and inserts a very specifically like female experience within them. So she shows how these models that are largely created by men for like male expressions of desire can be sort of changed or move towards a much more female expression of it. And I think that's really incredible, especially for the time that she was writing. So yeah.
So why? What about literature and reading makes you so engaged?
I'm not sure. I feel like as every English student does really, I think I've always spent a large part of my life reading. Like I've always sort of used it as an escape, but also as, I don't know, a companion almost, a way of when I was in hospital a lot, I would have a book with me, and it was a way of calming me, but also giving me a space away from, the thing that I was facing at the time. But I basically just was always reading a book, and I just really love how you get the opportunity to think as a different person for a little while, or be in a different version of the world for a little while. And I think that really allows people to, I don't know, be more empathetic to others, but also to see the world around them in a more magical way or a more questioning way. It gives the ability to, think in different ways.
Could you help us contextualise how much or how often you actually read, and has that changed much over the years?
Oh gosh. I feel like I read all the time. Like for my English degree, I don't know, you have to go and read, the reading list, and it feels like the amount you have to read is never ending. Like with reading for English, there is no set limit. You could just keep going on reading forever. So yeah, I do read a lot, but I don't know, when I'm here, I do try and balance like academic reading and reading for leisure. And I think I find reading for leisure a lot more difficult nowadays. I'm not really sure why. I mean, when I look back to when I was young, I think a lot of like bookworms have this issue where when they're young, they sort of devour books. Like I could go through like what I call a fun book in like, I don't know, a day, a matter of hours. But nowadays, because I've trained my brain so much to, I don't know, be contemplating, be thinking, be sort of going over passages, I then take that into sort of more fun books as well. So it takes a lot longer to read them. But I don't think that means I'm any less in love with reading them or enjoy reading them. There's also just a lot more life to be doing outside of reading, sadly. But, like it needs to fit into the daily life. But I don't know, I read before bed. And I read for my degree all day, so it's a good couple of hours every day, more than a couple of hours, a lot of my day. So
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And the reason why I asked is not only that I always see you with the book, but I think I saw a YouTube video that you posted of the books that you read in the year stacked up, and
yeah.
it was very tall. And I seen that stack when people go to sushi train and with their plates, but for you it's a book. And what I'm trying to get at is there a distinction between the quantity of the material you read and the quality in terms of, like, are you sitting there annotating, analysing, rethinking, rereading? How have you been able to strike a balance between just going for sheer volume versus in-depth analysis?
I mean, I don't think my goal ever is to go for volume. I think there's a, in the booktube community there is this, I don't know, almost, I'm not gonna, I feel like the word would be toxic, but it's not really toxic. It's like there's this idea that you need to set a really high goal and you're not achieving reading unless you are reaching that goal. But I don't know, I'm a big believer that even if you read one book in a year, that's better than reading none. And I think that there is a book out there for everyone, and that you, like, however you approach reading, it shouldn't be like, I'm not a good enough reader unless I'm reading like 120 books in a year, but whenever I read, it's very like in depth. Like I'm always annotating, I'm always thinking, I'm always like, I don't know, rereading over passages to be able to understand how the author has done the thing that they're doing. Just because, I don't know, that's the skill that's been ingrained in me as an English student, but also I'm just interested. I don't know, I'm interested in people, I'm interested in world building, I'm interested in creativity, and I like to think about how people have put the puzzles together, and that's what's really important to me, not, the numbers. Yes, I don't know, I read like 80 books last year or something. I've currently read like 20 this year, and it's like, I don't know, it's a weird balance between the two things, but I think what's most important is that I'm interested in what I'm reading and I'm achieving what I need to do for my degree, but I'm also, interested and enjoying what I'm doing. If I'm not enjoying it, then, what's the point?
What is one or two practical skills or things that someone can do now to be a better reader?
Oh gosh. I feel like integrating reading into parts of your life that you don't necessarily, like, I don't know, there's times where people have a spare 20 minutes or they're washing the dishes and they could be listening to a audiobook or something. Like, I feel like people don't prioritize time for reading and they think they don't have enough time. And really, a lot of people, I don't know, when I have a job, I'm not going to have the opportunity to be reading all day. But if I'm commuting on a train, I'd be reading on the train. And I listen to audiobooks when I, go for a run or do my washing up, So I feel like that is really important. But also, like, finding books that are for you. Like, just because everyone else has said that's a great book or you should read the classics and things like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the right books for you as a person. And like, what's more important is that you find what you enjoy. Most of all, I mean, not everyone's doing an English degree and being told exactly what they need to read. I also think if you're wanting to learn more like practical skills in terms of going towards doing an English degree, practicing like annotating, thinking, taking passages out and looking at them like very in depth, like really close analysis is really important. But then also thinking about the contextualization around the text, like the history of the text when it was written, the sort of author that you have, and looking at different like ways of analysing, whether it's like Marxism, feminism, looking at those and creating a good grounding for your own form of critical analysis, So.
It sounds like what you want to do is to delay employment and take endless train journeys so that you can read.
I want to stay in academia as long as possible. I just want the opportunity to read all the time. Like, if I could pause other parts of life, absolutely I would. But I feel like audiobooks, at the moment, it's something I've started doing more recently, actually. I think that audiobooks are a good way of, when I'm walking to Sainsbury's, I have one. And I just listen to them like free on YouTube. They've got some really good ones on there. So
there's so much you said in that earlier response that I want to unpack. And the first one is about audiobooks and the medium of consumption. Obviously, when you listen to content or a podcast or and compares to when you're reading, it's different. How is it different, and is it the same value in terms of what it brings to the listener or the reader, the person?
I think it is a different experience. Like, I've listened to The Lord of the Rings quite recently, and I read The Lord of the Rings when I was quite a bit younger, actually, and it feels very different. Like, you're hearing another person's voice explaining the story to you, almost like you're almost immersed in it in a very different way because you are still existing in the world around you. Whereas when you read a book, I don't know, a lot of people will say to me that they visualize what's going on in the book, but I don't relate to that experience of reading. I can't visualize the characters in front of me. Or like my sister, for example, when she watches a movie adaptation of a book, she'll be like, I didn't imagine him like that. And I'm like, what do you mean imagine him? Like, I don't see a character in my brain. I see the words on the page, but I am still, in a strange way, existing within the world that is created because I am absorbed in the words in front of me. And I'm particularly very, very interested in book objects. So what does it mean to be holding the book in your hand? How does the font, like the shape of the font, impact the way you perceive the book and things like that? And I think that really goes into my medieval studies as well, because they were like a really prized possession and they were handcrafted and they were really beautiful and they had, illumination, and the more illumination you had, the more you were showing off your wealth, and it was a really like an object and symbol, and that really, really impacted the sort of interaction you had with the book. And so I think audiobooks are just another way of interacting with books, and if that's the way that is best for you to interact with books, that's totally valid and acceptable. And I think you just need to acknowledge that it is a different experience, but then ultimately any experience a person has with a book in any form is a unique experience because it's their experience with that text,
That's fascinating. So not just the content, but the like hard or soft cover and the pages and the font can make a big difference. do you have an example, and maybe you don't, of the same piece of work, but put in absolutely different formats? You know, one might be hardcover, one might have a softcover, but a much larger font. And was there a moment in your life when you went, wow, the same piece of work yet gives me a completely different feeling based on how they're presented?
I mean, there's the example that's coming to mind is they take like Shakespeare texts, right? And you can get them in these like massive and chunky, like full works of Shakespeare editions, right? And the experience of that is very different. It feels very academic. It feels very like looming almost. It's like, look at all of the work this like genius has created, right? And it's very different to when you get like a very slim edition of just one of the plays. It feels more manageable. It feels like it's a complete entity on its own. Whereas when it's with all of those other plays, it's like, I need to have an opinion of all of Shakespeare's works. I need to, you know, understand how this work relates to all the other works. I need to have read all of these things. And I found myself in last year, because we would read a Shakespeare play every week, I would find myself, you know, at the front of the book ticking off which ones I'd done, and I'd be like, oh, this isn't an accomplishment because look at how many I have left to do. Whereas when you have a single edition, it, you know, when
that's
you reach
the whole thing.
Yeah, when you reach the end, that is an entity that you've, you know, been a part of, you've read, and you can think of as a completed whole, both in the sense of like analysing it as a completed whole, but also, oh, look, I've read that book, I've achieved that, you know. But that doesn't mean like reading them as a whole edition is like a bad thing. It just means it's a different experience. There's also like children's versions of Shakespeare plays, where they will take them and they'll like have images of people and you know, and they slightly change the language so it's more accessible. But it allows, you know, it goes back to that idea of however you need to access literature for you, like you're still accessing literature and you're still allowing it to enrich your life, you know. And I think, you know, I think that's a positive thing.
It's absolutely fascinating how the psychological aspects, you know, affect the portrayal and how we perceive things. Back to an earlier point, and combining that point about children's book too, you mentioned about finding the right books for you. And just from my experience, I remember walking into my primary school library and seeing the wealth of books that it gets very overwhelming, and you know, you reach a state of paralysis that, wow, how am I ever going to read through them, and what do I do? And the natural default option is to go for the book that everyone thinks is popular or is very famous. How are you able to establish your interests and find the things that captivates your mind, and how would you recommend other children, for example, to find what really suits them? Is it just a process of trial and error? Is there a more targeted systemic approach?
I mean, it's many different things, and I don't think I have the answer. But I think one really positive thing that I've done that's much more of like an approach taken by schools is that at my secondary school that I went to, they, a couple of years ago now, they implemented this approach where in the morning each tutor group would communally read together a classic. So they came up with this list of books. They found this list of books, which was like, I don't know, this 50 or 100 books that you supposedly like had to read in a lifetime, right? And I find that idea like a bit, you know, I don't know, I have questions about that, but like, so people were being exposed to classic books, and I think we should, you know, acknowledge that classics lists can be, you know, questionable in the sense of like what sort of narratives they promote. They tend to be like very limited, and the canon is very like, you know, white male centered, and I think we need a lot more variation from that. But I do think that it is positive that they are exposing children to that form of literature, because they wouldn't like not necessarily have picked it up for themselves, all of those children, right? And so it develops, you know, literary skills, but it also allows people to go, oh, I liked that and I didn't know I would like that, but then you can think, what do you like about that? And then you can find other books that are related to that somehow. So I'm trying to think of an example. But I can't think of an example right now. But then in the end of school, they would then have 20 minutes to read a book of their own choosing. I saw a big change in what the students were picking up and what they were reading, and I think largely that was based on, being inspired by what other people are reading around them. Yes, I think you can't escape. We live in a society. You can't escape the influences of other people, and that can be a good way of finding what interests you. Again, like if you read a popular book, you can then quite analytically be like, okay, well, in Harry Potter, what I liked was the character of Hermione, right? So let me find other books where it's focused on, an intellectual young female character, So you take elements of what you like about books, and then you try and find other books that also contain those elements. And then again, when you read that book, you look at what elements of that book entertained you and what you enjoyed, and then you can carry that over,
That's fascinating. Wow, I've never thought about it in that way, where you read a book and find elements and then, use that element as a way to access other books that may be completely different.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. So,
it also works with hobbies as well. Like, if you have a hobby in life, just generally, you could be like, oh, okay, well, I don't know, for example, you with basketball, you could pick up an autobiography of, like, your favourite basketball player, or you could look at, books that have people that participate in basketball, but they could be about wider things. They could be about, like, forming community, or it could be, a Buildings Roman about, like, youth to adulthood, right? And then you'd find more things that you're interested in. So it doesn't necessarily have to start from a book. You can start from just your joys in life,
So what element of reading or literature or English had you picked out yourself and then developed a new hobby out of?
Gosh. Ooh.
Right from what you said.
Well, I said the other way around, like if you have a hobby and then you put it into reading.
But you started with reading, so.
I did start with reading. I don't know, because I read so much. I read such like an eclectic range of things. Like for me, I just like to pick up lots and lots of different things and give them a go, and I think that's largely because I do an English degree. But out like from reading, I don't know, I've been inspired to do so many different creative things. I remember actually when I was younger, I used to do like child acting. I don't do it anymore, but I used to, and I was reading Jacqueline Wilson's Double Act, and in it, one of the girls, she really, really wants to be in this TV sort of series, or I don't know if it was a movie, but she, goes on this whole quest to London, and she's like, I will audition for this movie. And so it wasn't that my love for acting developed out of it, but it was that I could see myself partly in that character, and it helped fuel my already interested hobby. It's not quite answering your question, but I feel like it relates.
Yep. I want to talk about your YouTube channel, APThompson, which is actually what you're more known as. More people know you as APThompson than Anna.
I meet people around Cambridge and they're just like, are you APThompson? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Anna.
So, how many, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing some stats about your channel, about, the scale that it has, and perhaps when did it start, and why did you start it,
It's not very big. I think I've got like 600-ish subscribers.
Yeah, not very big at all, Anna.
Well, I don't know, in the grand scheme of YouTube, and that's not to say I'm not grateful, like I'm so very grateful for those 600 subscribers, and I don't know, it really makes me happy. Mostly, like, the stats aren't really important to me. Some videos get like 100 views, some get several K views, and that, like, it doesn't really matter, because what is important to me is that I'm making some form of positive impact on people's lives, and it doesn't matter if I'm impacting one person or 100, like I do what I do not for self not for myself. I do it with the intention of sort of giving what information I have out into the world, you know. And some of them, like my book videos and things, they might seem to be about, I don't know, me and my interests, but really what I'm trying to do is show, you know, a broad range of literature that people might not necessarily have known before, seen before. That is the ultimate intention behind it. But, you know, what really makes me happy and what makes me keep going with it is the messages that I get being like, oh, I've applied to, you know, Clare College because I saw your video and I think it's the perfect college for me, or you've inspired me to actually, you know, apply to Oxbridge. I didn't think it would be possible for someone like me. And, you know, that's what really makes my heart happy. And that's why I make the videos ultimately. But yeah, I mean, it started actually, funnily enough, with a video that's not really anything to do with what I do anymore. And I spoke about it in the video that I did to celebrate 500 subscribers. Well, really to say thank you for 500 subscribers. It was initially a video and possibly need to say some content warnings here. It was about, it's relevant to an eating disorder that I had when I was younger. And that I still struggle with today. But I don't know, I've definitely significantly moved on from that. Like it's a completely different, my channel's completely different to that now. But I keep it there because, you know, it's truthful to who I was at that time. And it is truthful to part of my experience now as a person. You know, that I went through that, you know, it relates to me having a chronic illness, and how I experience that and go through university as a disabled person is a part of my channel and what I try to share. So, you know, it is still part of me, part of my channel, but it's not something I focus on anymore. But I keep it there for, you know, those purposes.
That's very beautiful, and I just want to thank you for sharing. And I think I've actually always quite admired you for the courage to be vulnerable, because in your videos and in all our interactions you're always so empathetic and open and just such a human being. And I think, you know, with anything online and public, especially YouTube, and you know, you have these 600 subscribers, I'm sure you don't know all of them, and when the video gets, you know, 7k views, that's potentially 7,000 people who watch it. Yes, you have that desire to, you know, share positive information that has clearly transformed a lot of lives and helped a lot of people. Do you have any fears about being so public and so open?
You know, I've never really considered it that much. I guess, like, you're always, if you're putting yourself out there in any single way, and it's impossible really not to, like, not everyone, but most people have, you know, like social media, some sort of online presence, and you're always putting yourself out there in some way. And I guess that trickles down to even like if you're having a conversation with a stranger or a group of friends, like you're always somehow presenting yourself in some way. And I never want to construct a persona. I never want to be someone that I'm not, you know. I just am true to who I am in that very precise moment. I've always considered myself like a very fluid person. I don't think I have like very one specific entity, you know. I'm everything I have done, I'm everything I will do, I'm everything I'm doing now. And so, you know, you're always vulnerable to people judging you, but I've not really had anything negative from my experience with YouTube. I'm, you know, and if I did, yeah, it would be hard and it would be difficult, but I think ultimately it doesn't define who I am as a person. And if they're being negative about something, I don't know, that I know that is a truth about me, then why should I let it affect me when ultimately, you know, I'm just being who I am. And I mean, like, everyone is being somehow put out there in some way all the time. And if I could put myself out there in a way that I thought might be of benefit to someone else, I think that vulnerability is worth it, you know.
A lot of your video segments are kind of giving updates of your life at the moment. You know, like, for example, I remember watching one of you, like, end of last year, you were talking about how you had to isolate and other people had their garden party and it was a bit disappointing, like, just little anecdotes like that. and how you reacted to it are all kind of captured on camera. Now that you're more than halfway through your degree and you look back at those earlier videos, how much have you changed as a person? Are you proud? Are you happy? Or how would you describe your emotions when you rewatch the older videos, if you do?
I don't really tend to rewatch them, but I think that, like, I don't know, in a practical sense, I'm very, very proud of how far, like, my actual skills with doing YouTube videos have come. Like, I definitely have learned on the job. Like, my first one of, like, I think it was, like, moving into Cambridge or something, like, you couldn't hear me. Like, there was just no audio. So, you know, I'm much prouder of, like, how far, like, literally the YouTube has come in terms of, you know, I like how my videos are now. I think they have, like,
Me too.
Thank you. I think they have, like, an aesthetic. But, you know, like, in terms of who I actually am in the videos, like I said before, like, I don't ever really want to put on a persona, you know, like, I just am who I am. And I struggle with the conception of people as, like, one fixed thing. Like, I feel like everyone is always adapting and changing, like, from minute to minute, from, you know, day to day. And I think that you kind of always hold who you've been within you, whether you've changed or not. And I do think I've changed quite a lot. And experiences change a person, but I think I always strive to be proud of who I am, and I strive to be, you know, happy and content with who I am, whether I'm, like, struggling or ill, or, you know, or whether I'm, like, succeeding everything I want to be doing. You know, whoever you are at the moment, you should work on, you know, finding peace with who you are and being proud of who you are. And I think everyone should be proud of who they are and what they achieve, really. I just wish everyone was a bit happier. Like, I know the world's hard, and, you know, I'm not particularly a very happy person. I don't think I try to be, but you know, I think everyone should strive to be happy with who they are, you know.
I want to return to some of the themes like accessibility that you touch on with you know, demystifying Cambridge through your YouTube channel. But before then, a lot of people want to be those study tubers, and when they get into Oxford, Cambridge, they want to also have a YouTube channel and do their vlogging. But one of the barriers for getting started or actually continuing is kind of the logistical processes behind the scenes, like how to edit a video, etc. Are you able to walk us through your process? Like, you record, like, what actually goes on until it gets published that we can watch online?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any special tools. Like, I video everything on my phone. I edit everything on my phone.
On your phone?
Yeah, it's all on my phone. I use a free app. I can tell you what app. So I literally just video with my normal camera, and then I use the InShot app to put it all together. I've also more recently, because I do publish...
I'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you. I do more recently have been designing things for myself on Adobe Fresco, because I do publicity design on that app. Also a free app. And then I just transfer them over and put them on. But I don't have any, like, I don't have a special camera or anything that I use. It's too expensive for me. Like, I don't earn money from YouTube, and I don't have money to put in it for myself. So yeah, just kind of film things on my camera, come up with, you know, the concept that I want to do, and then film it. And I mean, other videos, like I had a mini project on the YouTube channel, Cambridge Our Uni project. And that was largely like other people recording themselves, but they just recorded things on their phone and then sent them to me, and I edited them together. So it is, you know, you don't have to have all of these special tools. Like, you can if you want to and you can afford it, but you don't need to in order to get started on YouTube if that's something you want to do. And you can create, I don't know, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but you can create like good content without...
I can say that, though. It's very
Thank
good
you.
content.
Thank you very much. You can do that sort of thing, you know, just on a phone, and yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I think I do agree that sometimes the very expensive things, like, I'm sure they will help the quality, but the marginal impact compared to the costs that you have to put in may not always be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think your channel is testament to how having good content and a genuine persona and just I don't like the word authenticity for reasons I won't elaborate into, but I think you are very authentic in the good way, and that's I think a big reason why the channel has gone so well and been so well
thank
received.
Thank you so much.
So now, returning to accessibility and demystifying Cambridge, why?
Oh gosh, I mean, from my school, there's been so much changes in my secondary school in the time that I was there. And it's doing much better now, and I'm really, really proud to have been a part of that. And also, my younger brother is still at that school, and I'm really, really grateful that he gets to have the opportunities that he does, and he gets to be a part of the more positive times at that school. But we went through like several head teachers, all with very different agendas, and I don't know, the teachers independently, they really wanted to support students, but I think that there was a struggle there to get like students to achieve in just like basic maths and English, and also just sort of across the board, like the arts weren't very funded and things like that. And when I applied for university, you know, I didn't think that Oxbridge was really an option for me. And that was because I didn't know anyone who went to Oxbridge. I barely knew anyone who went to university. Not many people from my area do. Certainly not many people from my school in my area did. They do more now, which again, very proud of and really, really happy about. No. And, you know, I think that's really positive. But, you know, at the time of applying, I talked to other people here, and the things that they tell me about, I am slightly jealous because, and I think I have to admit that, like, I am. But then I also think, you know, the disparity that's there, like, I wish that other students who are like me and had the same sort of experiences as me at school, I think they should have equal opportunity to get the support that they need in order to get here. Like, we shouldn't have to, you know, work 10 times harder in order to get here. Like, you know, and it just feels like there is this secret knowledge, and like I didn't actually really know anything about Cambridge like at all until I was here, and I feel like I'm constantly like learning on the job.
Don't walk on the grass.
Things like that, like punting. I had no idea what that word was, and like there's just like a whole language here that like no one knows until you're like doing it. And like formals, when I started doing that sort of thing, I felt very I felt very out of place, you know, like I hadn't had an experience like that. And I was very grateful. There was an access officer called Ellie, who came to my school, and actually she was the first person to go to Cambridge from, I think, my town, but certainly my school. And then there's me and my friend who's at Oxford now, and we were the first few. And she came back, and she came to speak to me, and she came to speak to my friend who's at Oxford, and really that was when I went, oh, this is a possibility for me. And I think if we can make that more of an option, if that could be like, you know, on YouTube, as an example, just ways of getting to people and saying, you know what, this can be for you, and you deserve to apply here, and you are good enough to do whatever you want to do, whether it's Oxbridge or any other form of higher education, or whether you don't want to go to higher education. It doesn't matter, as long as you're making the right decision for you and reaching your full potential. I think sometimes people just need to see someone else who's like them doing the thing that they want to do, you know, in order to go, oh, that is actually something I can do, you know. And, you know, I just, that's really like the driving force. I just want to be able to make it easier for people in some way. I'm not going to say that I have somehow got like the magic potion to get people into Oxbridge, but like, I don't know, I used to tutor people, and I really thought it was important, that sort of, you know, voice of information that you can pass on to people that they might not get otherwise. And I think that it is a structural thing, that, you know, there is inequality when it comes to like schooling in the UK, and I think that should be addressed on like a bigger level than what individuals can do. But I do think that like institutions, individuals, like access projects, they are so invaluable to individual people, you know, and also to communities as well. Like if you get a community where a lot of people haven't gone to higher education, and then suddenly you can get a whole generation to go to higher education, like it completely changes, you know, that community of people. For it's really, really positive to see. Makes me very happy.
Wow, you thought very deeply about these issues, and it's very touching how personal it is. And if I have the transcript, I think that could form half of my essay. Back to your school. You were head girl, I believe you're telling me, last year. And amongst all the brilliant things you did, one of your proudest achievement, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you set up like a lunchtime reading club, library club?
Yeah, so it wasn't...
after school, was it?
No, it wasn't reading. So what it was... so basically, one of the new head teachers of the many plethora of head teachers that we had, she wanted to set up head boy and head girl. And our school had never had that. Like, we'd had... like vaguely we'd had student government, but like not really. Like I was always part of it, but like we were never really given the opportunity to do anything, right? And then this head teacher was like, do you know what, I'm gonna do this very like structured, we're gonna have a head boy and head girl. And I did it in year 10 and year 11, and then I also did it over sixth form as well. And in year 10, year 11, the like student council that we had, and also me and the head boy, who's my friend who's now Oxford, we sort of had this room at lunchtimes, and we would give tickets out to students at break times, and they could go to school clubs at lunchtimes. They could go to school clubs in the evenings, and we didn't really have school clubs up until that point. Like they weren't, like we had a few sports, but like other than that, clubs weren't really like a thing.
So that's like extracurricular activities.
And I think those are so important to like student experience, like student happiness, but also things like your personal statement and just like general enrichment. I think things like that are just so important. So I was really proud to be a part of that. But then outside of that, in that same room at lunchtime, so several of us would sit, we'd take it in turns, but I really enjoyed being a part of it. You sort of sat in there at lunchtime. We had, you know, mindfulness colouring. We had just the opportunity for students to come and speak to us about, you know, pastoral things, but also things they wanted us to take to, you know, the governing body and things like that. So, like support, but also, you know, a space for students to have, like a break and be at sort of more calmed peace, you know. So, yeah, that was really...
I know it's difficult talking about yourself, but you were head girl, and you know what do you think made you the candidate for head girl? You know, what about you? Were you more hardworking? Did you care more about school, more about learning? Like, why were you chosen, in your opinion, as head girl?
Ooh, I mean, the people I was running against, they're all equally like intelligent and brilliant people. Like they all had a passion for education, and they all really wanted to do the role. But I remember when I was doing the application, I had sort of gone to several teachers and I'd asked for them to write sort of I don't know what they're called, letters of recommendation is what I asked for. And I've still kept them to this day. I have them in a box in my room. And it was really like, I don't know, the first time that I'd read something from someone and gone, wow, like if they can see me in that positive way, why can't I see myself in that way, you know? Wow, and I think that really, but it really, I think it really started me on like more of a positive, self-affirming journey. And I think it gave me, you know, the strength and the power and the drive to go, do you know what, like, I can strive for these things. And I then had an interview with the head teacher, and she told me when I'd got it, she said, you know, when I asked you about like why you wanted to do this, about what you wanted to achieve in this role, like you just had like a glint in your eye. And I was like, wow, okay. And she was like, you just seemed so, you know, you just seemed so impassioned about it, and you seemed so sort of almost like quizzed into like what you wanted to achieve and what you wanted to do. And I think I've always kind of been like that. Like, I don't know, it's quite strange for me at the moment because I have no idea what I want to do when I'm done. But I think
Welcome to the club.
Honestly, but I think I've always kind of gone, you know, if I've seen something that I want to do, I will put my heart and soul and 110% effort into it. Like, I've never been a person who could just, you know, settle for average. Like, you know, I don't know why. I always have this, like, absolute drive for myself to be the best I possibly can be. I think it came from my mum, actually. She always sort of instilled in me to be, you know, achieve everything I can and be the best I can be, and always sort of strive for everything I want to achieve and can achieve. So, yeah.
Anecdote about the letters of recommendation. That's quite interesting, because in psychology, I believe it's called the Pygmalion effect, where if someone thinks highly of you, then you go, oh, maybe I am better than what I think I am, and then you start performing better, and then that reinforms it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's like an educational technique that we have learnt about in, you know, enhancing other people's performance. You see them as higher than themselves, and they will actually reach the bar.
I always really like talking to you about education stuff because you just have the like coolest like facts and most interesting things to say.
The other example is, I think, a group of Stanford researchers went into a school, or that's where the Pygmalion effect came from. They made all the kids do an IQ test, and the top 20% of the people who had, you know, scored the most highly on it were deemed so-called bloomers, like the gifted and talented students.
Right, okay.
And what they did was, over, I think, 5 or 10 years, they tracked that entire cohort's academic performance. And overwhelmingly, the bloomers, the people who did well, ended up doing far better academically.
Okay.
Not surprising, right? Because they were academically brighter. But here's the twist. Those 20% of people were actually assigned at random.
No. Oh, that's so interesting.
So it's actually that self-belief, and also for teachers who didn't know about the randomly assigned, they thought, well, if this kid is smart and he's not doing well, she's not doing well, then let's not give up on him or her. She's smart, so let's give her or him extra support. And it's really interesting how education and psychology ties in together. I think your story illustrates that. And on that point, who are, or I'm sure many people have contributed to your success, but are you able to single out one or two, either teachers, your parent, adults, influencers who have most shaped who you are as a person?
I mean, certainly my mum, but I've kind of already covered that. I think.
You can never say enough about mums.
No, mums are just like, I don't know. She has so much love for me, and she's always supported me in anything I want to do. And, you know, I'm very, very grateful for that. And, you know, still to this day, she cares about me and loves me. But, I mean, you know, I feel like I could gush about my mum forever. But I feel like in terms of schooling, I had the same English teacher since, like, midway through year 7 to the end of year 11. I just was very lucky, and I managed to have her every year. And she is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She just was
What's her name?
Oh, gosh. No, how have I forgotten her name?
Okay, but her impact is real.
I do know her name. I do. Miss Strachan? It's something like that. Oh, gosh.
Just shows that anonymous heroes do exist.
Oh, no. I feel like it was Miss Storm, but it was spelt Strachan.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Let's go with that.
No, I honestly, this is so embarrassing. I mean, you know that I'm bad with names, David. That was a bit mean, okay? I do know her name. You're just putting me on the spot now. I actually have her letter of recommendation downstairs, but, you know, so... Yeah, so she was always very supportive, and she sort of promoted me to explore English in a really fun way, and she was also, you know, just a generally very, very kind person. She was always really worried about me, like, burning out or you know, not being able to balance my illness and school and things like that. And she's a really lovely person, very empathetic, and she, still to this day, sometimes I will talk to her on Twitter, and she'll be my little and she'll be like my little cheerleader, and it's just amazing. I think teachers like that are wonderful, and I don't know, there is several English teachers in that department, and I mean that were wonderful, and that sort of just handed me books and were like, you will love this, read this, you know. And I think if you can have an influence like that, which allows you to pursue your passion even further and gives you, like, I don't know, like a flame, like if you have a spark of interest and they're sort of allowing that spark to become a flame, you know, I think that's really, really important. And I will always be grateful for Miss Strawn. I'll always be grateful for her. And, I think ultimately she was a large part of why I am now doing an English degree. And she was also really supportive of my writing. I mean, I used to do a lot of creative writing, and I wish I had more time to do it nowadays. And hopefully I will get more time to do it. But at one point, I think it was in year 10, I did this writing challenge, which is called Nanowrimo. And you have to write 50,000 words in the month of November. And you have to write a story. And then it goes into competition, and she would read parts of it and she'd give me advice. And I think just going that extra mile for your students as a teacher, and truly allowing them to follow their passions and supporting them in what they want to do, I think that's invaluable. But also, she was really great at supporting all students. It wasn't just like you were saying about the bloomers, it wasn't just about the people that were deemed, the top. She was interested in inspiring and engaging all students, and I think she continues to do that, and she's just a lovely person. And I'm very grateful to have had her in my life.
My most watched TED Talk is called Every Child Deserves a Champion by an educator called Rita Pearson, and I don't know if you watched it, but it sounds just like Miss Strawn. Someone who genuinely believes in the child and instills in them confidence and inspiration and never ever gives up on them. And I think that's beautiful. We all need a Miss Strawn in our life at all times, I think, in different circumstances.
Do you have a favourite teacher?
I do. I have so many that it's always hard to single out, but seeing we're sitting in my room and I'm facing my photo wall, the pin wall, I can see that photo of me and my year 4 teacher called Mr. McCarthy. He was such a wonderful, wonderful man who, guided me, gave me all the support that he could. I was terrible at English at the time and still not very good, but I was atrocious at that point. And I just remember he would sit there with me, encourage me, tell me what I've done well. And in fact, last year when I caught up with him, and that's where you can see the photo the 10 years later where he's shrunk so much, I ended up actually writing an article about his influences because I kept all my work and his feedback and his comments, and amongst all the great things he's done, something he did very well was he never praised you based on your talent. Right. He would never say stuff like, you're so smart or you're so gifted. It will always be, I can see you've put in so much effort on this. And I think that added in that kind of growth mindset where it doesn't matter where you started, it doesn't matter what cultural background. If you put in the effort, if you're interested, if you go above and beyond, then you are improving, and he's noticing that. But I've had so many great educators and teachers.
I feel like wonderful teachers. They just make so much impact on people's lives. They're just so influential, and they're just, I don't know, they're really, really wonderful people.
Truly noble profession. It's wonderful. They're heroes. Speaking of your writing, there was an anecdote, and you probably know where I'm gonna get to. But apparently, when you had your English interviews at Cambridge, your interviewers pulled out a piece of submission that you submitted years ago that you'd probably forgotten. And I think,
definitely forgotten.
And I think they asked you, how have you changed and what do you think about it now? Can you tell us about the background context of that and how you handled that during an intense Cambridge interview?
So I'd entered an essay competition, I think, in year 9. It was basically just at that time where I was just, I don't know, I was bored and I wanted to write things, and I needed like prompts to write things. So I was like, let me enter like writing competitions, poetry competitions, this essay competition. And I just found it on the internet and I was like, yeah, that's cool. And you got like a list of essay questions that you could write on. And the question that I chose was something to do with how whether visual art is entirely different from literature, right? And I think really that's where my interest in like the book object has come from. But that's like a story for a different time. But like, so I'd written this essay and I'd written about Beatrix Potter in it, actually. That was my like main focus. And I'd written about like illustrations in books and how they could influence, you know, how you read things as a child. Like if you see a fox, right, and you see him, I don't know, looking sly, right, you're gonna get the idea of him being a sly fox from the illustration and not from the writing, right? But how can they have a relationship to each other? Anyway, I was then asked, basically I was in this interview and I didn't think I was doing very well, right? I was very like tense. This was my first Cambridge interview. I'd never really seen Clare College before. It was all a lot, right? And then they had like this packet of stuff and they had your like personal statement in there. They had your essays in that you'd handed in, and she pulls out this piece of paper and she goes, I really want to ask you about this essay. And I was like, oh, it must be my Afro-Burn essay. It was the one I handed in. She's like, right, so this one about visual culture. And I was like, oh no, I don't have any remembrance of what I wrote in this. And then she was just like asking me about whether I thought what I wrote was accurate and like whether I still believed it. And then she like asked me to apply my theories. This is the word. Apply my theories to a book I'd read more recently that was an adult book. And I just went on this like massive spiel about a painting that was on the front cover of Wuthering Heights, but like it was like so incoherent and it just wasn't like, and I couldn't remember what I'd written in the essay. Like for the life of me, I was just like, what on earth did I write in this? So yeah, if you ever do an essay competition for Cambridge, be aware that they keep it, and it doesn't just go into
very practical interview preparation.
It doesn't just go into the ether. It exists, and they might present it with you in front of you. You know. Anyway, after my interview, I then went back and read it, and I realised everything I'd said did not align with the theories in my essay at all. But that's okay, because I think
that shows growth and progression.
I think in English they like you to sort of be able to change your ideas and be evidencing things in different ways. Like I said before, like we're not static people. Like we're not like one set entity. So our minds can change, our opinions can change, you know, based on what we've read. And I think the opportunity for growth, like you said, you know, I don't think it was like a negative thing on their side of things. It might have been, I don't know, but like it was certainly an interesting experience. But I would say like getting involved in essay competitions or different forms of writing is a really positive thing to do when you're younger, because I think it like provokes you to think in lots of different ways, you know, outside of just like the set curriculum. I really enjoyed them anyway. I didn't see them as like a I don't know, something I had to be doing. I just sort of wanted to do things that I enjoyed, and I found them and I did them, and it didn't really matter to me that much, but you know, it was fun to do. But yeah, I would just say be aware that they keep them.
That's the number one takeaway, is if you got an Oxbridge interview coming up, make sure you reread every single thing that you've written as a child.
Yeah, absolutely everything.
Can you give me two other advice that perhaps future interviewees that may find helpful now that you've been through this experience? Especially if they don't know people who have been through this process. What would you tell them? Just two, if you're single at down to two.
Well, I had I had no idea what the interview.
Subscribe to APThompson might be.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be life changing. Absolutely. No, I mean, I'm still learning, so it's not like the. Anyway, I didn't really know what I was going into. Like, I had no conception of it, right? So I just kind of tried to go in with the mindset of, this is an opportunity to talk with academics who are the best in the field that I want to go into, and just sort of having almost fun with it. Like, it's a very stressful situation. What I would say is to try and have a mindset that it's not a test, right? Like, it feels like it is, but in the moment, if you try and just enjoy the opportunity to speak with someone who knows a lot more than you do, right, and sort of just engage with that and enjoy the moment of that, whether you get in or not, then you can say, look, I had this really, really positive experience doing this, and it's worth something for that, you know. And then specifically for English, my tip would be to think aloud. And it's a skill that I feel like a lot of English students really struggle with, because we're very used to expressing ourselves in the written form and in like long written form, you know, right? So and even in that sense, like, I always was really bad at sort of like run-on sentences and stuff. I still am today. But I think, you know, practice before you go to interview. It can be like talking to your cat. You know what I mean? Like, you don't actually have to be talking to anyone in specific. But just so like,
the Cambridge interviewers are equivalent to cats.
No. But like, it's just about practicing.
Yeah. No,
going through your thoughts and I know. and like saying what you want to say. Like, saying your thoughts out loud, right? Because what they're really looking for is people who would do successfully in, what are they called? Supervisions. Yeah. People who would do successfully in supervision. So they're not looking for right or wrong answers in English at all. You're not being tested on anything. You could say a date wrong, and I don't think that would really matter, right? Obviously, like, you would end up thinking about it a lot and making it a bigger deal than it is. I still sometimes think about the mistakes I made in an interview. I fell over into a chair. I think about it almost every day, right? Yeah. But like, what I would say is that what they are looking for is for you to think aloud. You know, they want you to be showing that you're working through something, and don't just think that there is one set answer to everything in English, you know, because it is a subject about thinking primarily, you know.
And once you got to Cambridge, you know, we're living with people who study all different subjects and all different backgrounds, some from very far away and some don't even arrive at the start of the year or the term.
They're just an empty room.
Yeah. You know? Clearly not me. How have you found living with people from very different backgrounds and very, very different intellectual interests, very different extracurricular interests? You know, I know universities love to say about their diverse cohorts and stuff, but having lived here, is that real, and how has that shaped you?
I mean, I think this is something we both share an interest in. We just like talking to people. Like, we just like learning about different people. I mean, like, you have a podcast about talking to people, you know. I find that it's really enriching to talk to people from different places and with different mindsets about things, different interests, you know. Like, you can't really be a successfully rounded person, I don't think, unless you have been exposed to lots of different types of people. And I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done at all universities, but specifically Russell Group universities and Oxbridge, to diversify more than what they currently are at. I think there needs to be a lot of work done with that, because there is, like, on the scale of like individuals, obviously they should have the opportunity to be able to access a place like this. And yeah, so I mean, I've spoken about access work and stuff, but I think that's relevant to, you know, not only state scholars, but like lots of different areas. But I think on like more like a universal level, like, to have a cohort that is so varied allows everyone within that cohort to be sort of around a lot of different people, and so thus be influenced in a lot of different ways, and become a better individual because of that, and become a much more rounded individual who can sort of have thoughts in different ways. And I think I think I largely think about that. I think this kind of goes back to the reading questions at the beginning. I think I largely think about that because you know, I think that reading is a really good thing because it allows you to think about other people and other people's experiences of life. And I think if you can talk to other people in that way as well, then it's also a benefit for you, but it's also a benefit for them. You know, every conversation is somehow you know, it's an experience.
Mm.
It's helping you form who you want to be and how you think, you know. I mean, I certainly don't talk to as many people as you do. I'm quite like, I don't know.
But you focus on quality and just...
Yeah. It's most important to me, I think, to form, you know, relationships with people. And like, if I'm in a situation where I'm surrounded by strangers, I would totally talk to the strangers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I like to meet people, but I don't think I'm the sort of person that would go out of my way to be around a load of strangers. I would much rather have quality time with the people that I care about, but ultimately you're not going to find people you care about unless you talk to other people. Do you know what I mean? So like it's a bit of a balance, you know. And I think I'm not really like the most extroverted. I'm also not the most introverted. I like personal time, but I also like to be around people. So you know, it's a good balance, I think.
Obviously everyone is different and everyone's unique. You learn from everybody, but in your time at Clare University, can you single out 2 or 3 people who are unlike anyone you had interacted with before in your previous life experience? And how so? Were they crazy? Were they intelligent? Were they impressive? Were they hardworking? Were they creative? Like three people who you've met, and I think that should be pretty easy in a college or house. And how had they?
I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like as a collective, it's not 3 people, right? I'm changing your question. It's as a collective. I think the people we lived with in first year.
Who were they?
You.
Yes.
And there's Ewan and Maddie and Coco.
Yeah.
Right. We were like a little staircase, right? And it was just us as a little group. And I thought that, you know, with the isolations, with pandemics and things going on, right, we created, I think, a really nice bond, and we all really wanted to support each other and be there for each other. But also, like, we developed, like, every week we'd have, you know, family dinners where one of us would cook for everyone else.
It's a great tradition. It's a shame we don't do it anymore.
Yeah, it is. And I think, I don't know, it allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable in creating not creating who I wanted to be, but like allowing myself to be settled in who I was, and like having the opportunity to, you know, have a really positive experience in first year, which I think otherwise possibly would not have been there. And so I'm really grateful for you guys, and I think it also, we were quite like a varied bunch of people, and I think that was great, you know. Like, I think we all brought something very different, and yet we all, you know, had something to relate to each other, you know. And I think that's really interesting, how you can still be friends with the person and have something to connect with them over, but then also learn about such different things from each of them as well, you know. I think we all had a very positive influence on each other, and I think that was really nice. And we were all there to support each other, you know, which was really lovely. And I mean, certainly, like, the, like, painting nights that we used to do, I think that allowed me to sort of, like, evolve my creativity a lot. Like, I've always been a very creative person, but I think it gave me the opportunity to be a lot more free with it, because it was like a very relaxed environment, and I'd always been like, this is an artwork that I have to produce and it has to be perfect. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, right? But then I think in those moments it was like, well, it's not really about creating this piece of art, it's about the experience of creating it with these people, you know. So things like that. But yeah, I mean, I can't pick 3. I'm very grateful for all of my friends, and I think they're all wonderful, and I think they all have a very positive influence on me. My college spouses, Maddie and Theo, they're incredible people, and I love them with my whole heart. So I'm also very, very, very grateful for them. They are 2 of the most lovely people I've ever met in my life. So.
You're very kind, and sounds like the college marriage is going very strong.
Oh yes, no divorce anytime soon.
So, looking ahead, I know it's impossible to plan things, but what kind of person do you want to be? And, you know, you've talked about how other people have impacted your lives, and I can attest, and especially from my perspective, you've also had a very positive impact on me. But from your perspective, how would you want others to know you? And for example, what are some words or traits or characteristics that you want others to associate with you, and just what kind of person are you aspiring to be?
Ooh, that is a deep question, David. I mean, I don't know. I really want to be known for, I guess, my kindness and my empathy. That's something that's really important to me. I want to be a positive light in people's life, you know. I want every impact that I have with other people, conversation that I have with other people, to have some sort of positive influence. I don't ever want to be like a drain on someone else's energy, you know. I think there's too many things in life that are a drain, and I think that your relationships with other people should be a positive thing, you know. And yeah, I also, I don't know, for me, something that's really important that I'm trying to work on a lot is pursuing what genuinely is what I want and what genuinely interests me, because I think a large part of our lives is defined by other people's demands on us, and what, you know, the set life plan is that people think people should have, and I think I'm working on trying to take myself like slightly out of that, and certainly something that's really important to me right now is sort of allowing myself to follow paths of interest, follow paths of passion, because really at what other point in life do you really get to do that other than like at this sort of age, you know. And I think I really enjoy that, and I wish that I could carry that into the future, and I really hope I can, and I really hope I, you know, find a career where I'm always interested, I'm always learning, because learning is something that's really important to me, and I don't ever really want to be like I keep saying the word static. I don't know why it's influenced my vocabulary today, but I don't ever want to be like just passively living, I guess. Like I want to always be learning, striving for something more, doing something that I'm proud of and that I'm passionate about, you know. So yeah.
I'm glad you actively chose to climb up the stairs and knock on my door and have this conversation.
It was like climbing Mount Everest, you know.
I'm very, very, very grateful. One final question, and I hope it's a chance for you to share any messages that you perhaps want to share, but what is something, a message, a quote, a saying, a teaching, a philosophy, whatever it is that you wish every or most educators would promote and most children could internalize?
It's really cliche, but like you can be and do anything you want. You know, like there is nothing stopping you as long as you work to your full potential and are pursuing things that genuinely make your heart happy. Like that is all that matters in life, really. And yeah, I just wish every child knew that they can do like literally anything they want to do. You know, I also, I don't know, I guess I would say be kind to yourself and be kind to everyone else, because you know there's too much hardship in this world, and we should all just be kinder to each other, you know. There is one saying as well, again very cliched, that was stuck with me from school, which is you know, reach for the stars, and if you can't reach them then you might end up on the moon. And you know, I think that's a really important one. Like you can never reach too far. You will always achieve something if you are always striving for what you want and what you like. What there is like literally no limit to what you can achieve, you know. And I don't know, that the fact that again my mum pushed me to, you know, do everything I could and be as best as I could was something that really helped me develop my driving force and has allowed me to achieve what I have achieved. And I think every child deserves a cheerleader at their back like that, you know. So yeah.
Very wise words, and I just hope that there are a library on the moon so that when you actually land there you have something to read. But jokes aside, Anna, it's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I know we have talked a lot in the past year, but even through this conversation I've learned a lot more about you, and I think it's just your overall optimism and kindness and humility as well, and just your passion for giving back to, you know, when you talked about your YouTube project, it wasn't so much about you, but it's about opening up the resources for more people and the next generation, and many of whom you don't even know personally. I think that's beautiful, and that's something that we should all strive for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on and asking me to talk to you. It's been really, really lovely. I always love speaking to you. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank
Bye.
you.